I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange. Hey there, spooky nerds, and welcome back to Talking Strange. As always, I'm Aaron Sagers, and today we're checking into Hell Motel. This is the new anthology series from slasher creators Martin and Ian Carpenter. Now, this 8-episode limited series debuts with a 2-episode premiere on Tuesday, June 17th on Shudder and AMC, plus with new episodes releasing weekly on Tuesdays. Let me tell you a little bit more about Hell Motel. The show sees a group of 10 true crime obsessives invited to the opening weekend of the newly renovated Cold River Motel, the site of a 30-year-old unresolved satanic mass murder. History repeats itself when the guests get stranded and start getting knocked off one by one during a murder spree that grows exponentially more gruesome, and boy does it, than the last with each kill. The characters include Eric McCormick from Will and Grace, playing Hemingway, which is a chef with a wickedly sinister flair, a guy that you love to hate. He is joined by fellow motel guest Paige, who is played by Paula Brancati, a former screen queen actress looking to revive a career that has seemingly left her behind, as well as Crow, played by Sean Benson, who is a new age medium with an apparent connection to the massacre's victims. And then there's Blake, played by Atticus Mitchell, a true crime writer and himself a survivor of a mass killing. And Kawayan, played by Emmanuel Kabongo, who is a talented artist with a dark focus on murder. There's also Andy, played by Jim Watson, a bookish academic at the forefront of contemporary true crime studies. And Adriana, played by Genevieve DeGraves, who is a flight attendant with a serial killer fetish. Also appearing is Canadian drag queen Isis Couture, who makes a guest appearance as Magenta, a stylish real estate agent. And that is who sells the Coldwater Motel to the new owners, Ruby and Portia, played by Bren Godner and Michelle Nolden. Now, I've had a chance to preview the entire season. I really got a kick out of it. It's a little campy, a lot of horror, a lot of slasher vibes, solid gore. I would not say over the top, so it's accessible. I mean, if you dig the slasher franchise and slasher genre, I enjoyed it. And I also enjoy anthology series because we saw a lot of these characters, these faces show up in the slasher anthology series previously, including Jim Watson and Paula Brancati. And that's who we're talking to today. Paula and Jim are with us, and they're checking into Hell Motel with me. So let's hear it from Jim and Paula to talk about Hell Motel. No spoilers here, so let's dig in. All right, Jim, Paula, thank you so much for chatting with me today about Hell Motel. Hell Motel. I guess as the softball question to begin with, what has been the most hellish motel experience you've ever had? Have you ever checked into one of those places where you're like, I don't know, not only is this not clean, but I might die while I'm in here?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Any hotel north of North Bay in Ontario, Canada you're looking at that. That's yeah, there's been a few. My wife's in a band and we've hit the road a few times, and as we've pulled in, we immediately pulled out. It's definitely happened a few times.
How about you?
Like it's better to sleep in the car.
Yeah. Safer to sleep in the car.
Yeah, those hourlies can be bone chilling. The by the hour motels. I shot a movie with one of our producers, Aaron Barry, at a motel off the side of the highway. And we stayed in the motel that we shot in, very similar to how we shot this. And it was surreal. I asked for a sound blanket to serve as my weighted blanket at night just to get me to sleep. And we did come out still wanting to make more television. So it was all in all, it was positive.
Yeah, there are those places. I travel a lot for part of my job, and those places where you're like, maybe I need to go find a Target or a Walmart and just buy my own set of sheets, and not step on the 60-year-old carpet with bare feet.
Socks on situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
always socks on.
Um, well, I mean, since you kind of teed this up, Paul, I was going to ask about the shoot itself. Where did you guys shoot? Set it up for me a little bit about this location because it does look legitimately nice because it's been redesigned in this era, but it's still got a creepy vibe to it.
Totally. Well, we shot a lot of it in studio, not just outside of Toronto in Etobicoke, and our incredible production design team created the beautiful interior, and then the exterior we shot up in Coburg for 2 weeks at the end of our shoot. I feel frankly like we just wrapped. It was months ago, but it's seared into my brain because it was at the very end, so we were all kind of loopy. We were sleeping in the rooms, and then shooting in the halls at night and going for snacks at 3 a.m. That may have just been me, but I was going to the craft table through the night. Like it was kind of eerie, wasn't it, Jimbo?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like nighttime was a little spooky, but then like daytime had this sort of like camp vibe. Like whenever you weren't shooting, you'd kind of like sneak around and watch who else was shooting, and it was a great way to like to end the whole kind of filming process was to all be together, out of studio, breathing fresh air, which was lovely. But yeah, it was really cool. Yeah,
That's right. And nutty like night hours. I like that kind of fun. It was like
Yeah.
sleepover.
it was. It was like a giant sleepover.
Obviously, you both have credits in the horror genre outside of this one, but did you grow up were you horror kids? What's your horror DNA like, Jim?
I was like, I don't know if this is like niche, but I was really into the Leprechaun movies, like growing up. I don't know what it was just, yeah, they freaked me out beyond all belief. But I loved them. Like up until I think it was like Leprechaun in space, then it got a little out there for me. But yeah, my friends and I mean, The Shining, we were way too young to be watching The Shining. And that bathtub scene is seared into my mind for the rest of my life. But yeah, I was really into them as a kid. I shouldn't have been, but I was. Yeah.
How about you, Paula?
This is an unpopular answer, but I just find life too scary. Being a woman scary. There's so much to be scared about. The news scary. I scare so easily, guys. Even shooting the show, as I'm sure you remember, Jim, I got scared just like running in scenes because that's hard for me. I don't watch a lot of it. I don't watch a lot of it. I feel like being part of the slasher franchise, I like would watch things as references and like love a good scream queen. Jennifer Love Hewitt came up a lot this year. I like to center and Neff Campbell's, Queen Forever. I love the OG Scream. That Drew Barrymore scene has like come up a lot for me. So I do love a lot of those like iconic women in the genre. But yeah, Mama scares real fast. So I keep it to like it's like a Ted Lasso before bed.
Well, very spooky. Yeah. Very spooky.
Exactly. Well,
I don't know. There's a horror treatment to Ted Lasso that could be taken because he's wound pretty tight, you know.
you score it differently.
Yeah.
Different music, different show.
That's right. Different show.
I love Ted Lasso, but
Yeah.
That's more my speed to go to bed with. That's like I'm watching a makeup tutorial. I'm watching Ted Lasso. I'm drifting off. I don't know. I feel like watching this horror in a theater is different. I remember watching Boogeyman. I know, random. Grade 7 or 8. That was like scary to me, but fun because we were screaming and cheering in the theater. At my house, I don't know, guys.
obviously there's a lot of subgenre within horror, right? There's Jaws. Jaws is horror. Like anything you gravitate to that's more outside of the maybe unsettling slasher stuff or things that hew a little close to true crime. What about like monsters or anything like that? Is any of that your jam?
I really do love a thriller, and I also really love like A Sixth Sense was very seminal for me. I also should say like I love acting in them so much because I find it scary. And I think, and I also love, I think in starting to produce, I really enjoyed, looking at like the score side of it, like the sound design. That I think is really cool. So I have a huge appreciation for the genre for sure. And yeah, I think like just also the how voracious the fans are is really, really, really fun. Like we're gonna screen this in Toronto on Friday with everybody in the theater, and even though I think I'll jump scare at our own show, I think that's gonna be really scary. You have to help me, Jim.
Oh, well, don't I? I'll be right there with you. We'll both hide our faces. It'll be fine.
Right. I think that's the fun of it. So yeah, I think anything that feels too close to life is scary for me. But to be honest, what's really fun about the slasher genre is that I really enjoy the camp in it too. I think that's why I like some of that 2000 stuff. Aaron Martin, who created the show with Ian Carpenter, they do such a great job of balancing the like dead serious high stakes kills, but also there's a lot of humor in the show, and that's been the learning curve I think about the genre, is that there's a lot of play in it too, and there's camp and winking and fun and like good humor in it as well. So I've grown to be a fan for sure.
Mm-hmm. And Jim, as far as Leprechaun goes, I watched it a lot I watched it as a kid, and then I recently rewatched it as a part of like a community kind of like a live stream situation.
Oh yeah.
And great, but now I feel like I need to get the phrase "fuck you, Lucky Charms" on like T-shirts or something. I don't know why that's not popular merch by now.
Wow.
Came back. I know there's so much in that whole series that like, yeah, there's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah.
After the fact out of that show.
Yeah.
Is it a show, Jim, or a movie?
It was a movie. It was a movie. Show. I just used the word.
I'm just curious like how to even. It's not on my radar.
Oh, you need to get it on your radar. It's wild. It's out there. There was one called, was it Leprechaun in the Hood?
Yes.
It's very like
okay.
it was pushing the limit even back in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, it was a crazy show, but lots of fun. But that's the camp, right? Like it is that level of campiness to it that it's tongue in cheek, but also like terrifying at times.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't watched it as an adult. I don't know how was it for you watching it on a live stream? Were you still like, you're in this genre, this stuff inside and out.
I mean, I love it just because, it's fun to look back on the things. I don't think I even found it all that scary back then because it was intended to be a little bit schlocky and campy. It's a good time, Paula, to educate yourself on Leprechaun because I think they're talking about doing a reboot, and so.
Could I be the Mr. Leprechaun?
That's what this is really all about. We're both cast. This is a big reveal.
We got 4-leaf clovers just tattooed on it.
Just do it.
Yeah, we're gonna do the audition process after the interview.
I'm thinking about it. Rainbows, right? And a pot of gold.
You'll be great. Yeah, you nailed it.
I grew up. I grew up very much. I was an '80s kid, and I was raised Catholic, and in that kind of zone, the Satanic Panic was very much like, hey, this stuff is happening all around, and you should be afraid, along with some stranger danger stuff and all of the kind of the elements that go into the blender that is Hell Motel. So did either of you, were you steeped in the Satanic Panic growing up? I don't even know precisely how much it permeated Ontario when you guys were kids, but Paula, how about you?
Yes, I mean, you're like Brancati, raised Roman Catholic, I bet, and I was, and The Exorcist. There was a lot of fear. I don't think I could barely sit through it because I heard about when that came out in theaters and people were passing out. My dad told me about watching that in theaters. I'm sure my nonna did not approve. She would say "fai corni," which is like kind of like get rid of the devil energy is what that means. So yes, Satanic Panic, I'd never heard that term. I think Italians just live with that their whole lives. So there's definitely elements that part of this season is spooky to me because I think sometimes in Jim and I met doing Slasher by our creators, and every season of that had a different like track that the killers were on. I think this satanic element was something that was very different, this sort of like spiritual component, and that element to the murders added a creep factor for me for sure. Some of the sets, I don't want to give away too much, but there was a set that I don't want to name, but I think you know the one I'm thinking, Jim, but who knows?
I
That was
know it.
as yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very spooky and eerie to be shooting in. What about you, Jim?
Oh, me. You know, it's funny. Like, I've always had at least one family member who's a little out there and would always sort of say dabble in the dark arts. And so I was always sort of like, sort of aware of like these like Baphomet and these, you know, otherworldly kind of satanic beings. And so they kind of just, I've always approached that side of things as like a bit of a comic character in a way. So, but it was cool. Like when I found out that this story was really focusing on that world, it like took me back a bit. And you know, I reached out to some of those people who are a little out there and got their input. And sometimes they gave me a little more than I needed, but it was yeah, it was cool. It's always been a weird, like I didn't grow up with any sort of religious connotation in my life, but maybe in a weird twist, that element has always sort of drifted in the background of my being.
Was there a word of caution from that family member that, look, if you're gonna, it doesn't matter if you're doing this on a script, there's part of a job. Like you could really be stirring up something here. Was any of that from that family member?
Oh yeah. Well, speaking about the set that shall not be named yet, I sent a few behind the scenes photos to this guy, and he was, yeah, the texts were long. There was just a giant warning, and I just muted it. That's the best way to deal with those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the realism and the look of it all, the you know the production design team really went all out, and
I don't
it definitely plays.
I
Yeah.
don't know if it's the set you're talking about, but I'll just say it because it's not a spoiler. But the pentacle set that we see is very cool looking. And
That's it. Yeah.
okay,
I'm playing in it and
Yeah.
in it. The basement is what I was going to call it, and I was like, does that sound misleading?
No, that's the one though. That's yeah. It was intense.
That was, oh my
And
gosh.
I can't remember where we've shown it in trailers yet, at what level it's at, but
it's in the
yeah.
first episode.
Yeah, okay. That set gets
I
you.
know what you're thinking, Jim. I know.
Yeah, we that set only gets better with time. Not to too much rain.
That's a good tease. So let's talk about these characters a little bit. The character of Andy and Paige, we're introduced to them, and right away, at least the first episode, first two episodes, they're the most likable, almost ethical, I would say, or I don't want to say moralistic, but it seems like there are audience surrogate a little bit. Build on that a little bit and tell us about these characters beyond being a scream queen, former scream queen, and an academic studying this stuff. Paige?
Yeah.
Or sorry, Paula. Paula, who plays Paige.
We're used to it.
Yes, it's all one. Yeah. Paige is an homage to one of our producers, Paige Haight. Shout out to Paige Haight. That's why I named Paige. She is sort of the, a bit of the eyes in for the audience, I think. I sort of looked at her. We talked about her being like maybe the most pedestrian and civilian and having some of the more natural responses out of the gate to some of this behavior from the rest of the group. But she's also there participating in something that she's not entirely proud of as a aging actress in the genre who needs to take whatever gig she's offered. Not meta. She's there kind of against her will. So, me and Aaron and Ian talked a little bit about her being there reluctantly, her maybe being a bit of an Eeyore is how I feel about her. She's not having all of that delicious fun that the rest of the cast was. And we'd be shooting some of those intro scenes where we meet everybody. And I'm like, oh my God, everyone's having so much fun. And she's a bit of a downer. She doesn't laugh a lot. Hey, she's not really cackling. She doesn't have a laugh, but she does, I think, connect with Andy, Jim's character, pretty early because she sees that he's having similar responses, that some of this is absolutely absurd and creepy and not feeling entirely morally correct. So yeah, I think there's it was very fun to play. And then there's also a pressure a little bit when you are responsible for maybe how the audience might be perceiving like the compass of the show. Yeah. So that's how we meet them. Sure, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. It's interesting because like our two characters definitely form a sort of understanding with each other because Andy is this sort of analytical skeptic in a sense. He spent his entire time studying and disproving and all, that's his whole MO is the PhD candidate push. And so it was kind of interesting to really like come in with the skeptic's gaze and be also a bit of a lens for the audience at the same time, while still like being taken in by this thing that I think any skeptic in anything in the world, they have to have a love for the thing that they're studying, right? Even if you're trying to disprove it, there has to be this sort of desire to be involved. And so that was a really fun sort of balance for Andy, is to like enjoy what's happening, but at the same time always sort of be like, I don't know, like always have that sort of air of this might be a little wishy-washy. And I think our two characters kind of walk this similar tightrope in a really interesting way. And at times we've got to play off each other really well with that. But it was definitely fun because it was hard, with Adam, our director, it was that constant conversation of like, is how excited, how happy, how, much am I questioning? There was a constant, conversation there around Andy's involvement in the scenes. And it was a ton of fun to play.
Mm-hmm. Is this same universe as Slasher?
Same universe. it's of the same, ilk to some degree. I think it's a cousin.
I think we have so many returning cast from the show because we all loved doing it so much, and Aaron and Ian write things for a lot of us to come back. I think what was beautiful about Slasher is it was always standalone. Every season felt different and had a new personality. We changed DPs in some instances. Adam came in. We had different directors for various seasons at a certain point until Adam joined. So there's its own personality. So with Hell Motel, it's like, I think a lot of the ingredients that made Slasher really special, but also has the opportunity to bring our fans, hopefully from that show into like this Hell Motel world. And the motel of it all creates this other encasing for it, I think, very cleverly, because lots can happen in a motel, as we've referenced.
Lots can happen. Yeah, someone was said that we're like a company of actors, which in the film and television world is it's a rare thing. And so that's kind of the thread that holds us all together, is the team, is the group, is this sort of revolving door of familiar faces. And it's like, I had to take years off, Yeah, the crews come back, getting to come back after 2 years away from the other series, Slasher, and getting to work with Paula again and so many other amazing people. It was like, this is how you've always dreamt about this job feeling. And if they're anything alike, that's where they're all alike, is that series.
Yeah, like we're lucky that because we had so much returning cast and crew and we shoot the show out of order, we block shoot it. So we literally are shooting all 8 at once, which is not super traditional. It is like we're shooting a long movie. On my first day, I did do scenes from, I'm going to say, all the episodes I was in, without saying however, whatever that amount is. And so that's, everyone's coming in pre-prepped, crew, cast, everything's really set. So there is like this, you're kind of on this train together once it starts, and you're really building together. There's a lot of trust, and the heads of department are spectacular. And I, for one, was very happy to have Jim back because I'd missed him on Slasher the last bit. So a big treat for me.
Yeah.
And I do love I love sort of the anthology model, especially when applied to horror and the repertoire of actors, because we do get to see you, really stretch your legs, flex your muscles, and then as you take on these different characters. That said, I'm curious about Ian and Aaron's storytelling, and what is it about them that just keeps you coming back, and what makes them kind of unique in this industry that you've developed this loyalty to them? Do you want to?
I mean, I can start. For me, it's like, it's their sensibility. It's when you meet, especially Aaron, and when you kind of meet him, you would never suspect that this is his kind of MO, that he is writing in this world and that he builds these worlds and characters so well. Ian, maybe a little more. He comes off a little. You wouldn't be as surprised, but that combination, and I'll be honest with you, an element of Canadianism that kind of is just infused into who they are, the being that they are, in a genre that is sort of unspecific and global. It just they managed to just kind of carve out this little sliver that is very familiar to an audience, right? We've all kind of seen the camp. They pay homage to years and years, decades worth of film and television in the genre, but they just have a natural difference that just comes out in their ability to work with each other. It's like when you put two different spices in, you get a new spice, and that's sort of what it is. It's almost, obviously it's hard for me to really put words to, but there's just something about it that is comfortable, exciting, new, and at the same time very familiar. And it's a joy to be around those two.
Obviously, Paula, I mean, you can most certainly speak to this, having been in all the slashers.
Yes, for sure. Well, Aaron and I crossed paths way back on Degrassi. It was his final season. He did some of my favorite episodes of Degrassi ever, and I joined the show as he was leaving. And then I was on Being Erica that he and Janice Senior did. So we did 4 seasons of that. Couldn't be more different than this. And he invited me into the slasher world by way of offering me to produce it, which was also, and I didn't end up doing that. The timing didn't work. And he said, would you be one of the leads instead in Guilty Party, where Jim and I first met? And actually, sorry, I did a little pop in season 1. I forgot that. He was like, do you want to come do a day? Like Aaron's the guy who, grows careers, also sees things in actors that we don't see in ourselves, that he continued, to come back in this way. And then with the ad of Ian, they're always writing stuff for me that I'm like, you think I can do that? First of all, like flattered and scared and insulted and thrilled. Like it's like, I don't think I'd ever have booked these jobs if I don't even know if I would have been seen for some of these roles, to be honest, if they hadn't written them for me. That's how that's just maybe a feeling about growing up I've been working almost 30 years and being a woman growing in the industry. And just, I feel really lucky to be challenged in this way and trusted in this way, but also they write to every actor's gifts. And what I mean by that is, like, if they know that you can do drama, but you have a funny bone and you have I think they just are so smart about knowing bits of you. And I love how every actor shines in our show. I think that's what's really special. And also, just to speak from a female lens, like, it is a delight to be on something where every woman could be a lead of the show, is a lead of the show. There's no tropey female stuff going on in their writing. It's like every character is thrilling and is not used as a device, and every woman is very voicey. I can't tell you how many things I've read where the women's voices all bleed into one, and that's never the case on the show. So for me, that's like a very easy yes. Yeah.
And we're winding down, but I need to ask.
Winding up.
We're winding up, and then we'll get to the Leprechaun auditions. What what's the there's an element of urban legend to this, right? Even though it's true crime, it's something that permeates, it becomes an urban legend, and that happens kind of a lot. The legend, the nugget of truth, and then things grow from there. I was curious, every town, in my experience, has some sort of legend, story, creepy old house at the end of the block, ghost story, whatever it might be. What's the one that you grew up with that you could still think of? I know, I think, like, in Thornhill, I've heard of things like the Heinzman House. There was supposedly a haunted golf club, a women's golf club in North Bay, like the Discovery North Bay Museum. So what is your legend that you kind of grew up with? The guy with a hook for a hand sort of thing. Paula, do you want to begin with that?
First of all, I'm just thinking about the show we're going to pitch about the women's golf club.
Like, oh man,
we'll sidebar, but I have such a dark thought, and it's not urban legend. I feel like it might even be too dark to say. Like, and maybe I'm going to say it, and feel free to cut it, Aaron, because maybe it's like, that's not. To be honest, I can't even think of one that's fake, because I grew up at a time where, in the early 90s, like, there was a lot of stranger danger. We were getting notes home about the Scarborough rapists. Like, I grew up in Markham on the Scarborough border, and the JonBenet Ramsey case was on, and we were watching that after school. Like, it was just a time where that was really rampant. So I don't know. I don't even know an urban legend. I just know the real ones that were happening. And the messaging was, it's fucking scary being a girl out there, and that is probably why I don't. It's
Yeah.
such a dark. I think that's why horror scares me, because we were there, and I grew up in a very like strict house and a lot of like, not really allowed to play on the street, and just sort of like old school immigrant family. And my grandparents were very scared, and they'd pick us up from school. So to me, that felt like the real life horror going on at
Yeah.
the time. And I didn't grow up in, I think Jim, your experience is very different, but I think I fantasized about what it might have been like to grow up in like a more idyllic way. But I don't know, I had a lot of like that real life scare going on, and it was just the beginning of like, we didn't have the internet at all, so you didn't have all the access to everything, and you'd hear one story and it was like, and it was scary enough. So feel
True.
free to keep that, but that's my truth.
No, I think it's fair. It's accurate. Although I do hope that Jim has something maybe a little bit lighter.
Fun, Jim.
Yeah,
What end on that?
I do have a little. I mean, I didn't grow up in the city where all of that stuff is true. I grew up, in like Bracebridge, Ontario, Muskoka, and North
This is
Bay.
what we're talking about. Let's
Yeah, and it's funny though. Like, yeah, there were those like kind of. I was like not really aware of the classic urban legends. I was always aware of the ones my mom told me. And it was always like this house at the end of the street. It was always this sort of thing. But we had this one house, and it was like obviously now looking back, the wealthiest house in the entire block. And they had this like 1 kilometer long driveway. And all us kids would play, tag and stuff at night. It was back in the 90s. You could run around without being fearful. And it was like we would all play this game of running up and trying to touch their front door without getting caught. And to this day, I still have no idea who lives there. But the beast we created was the most terrifying thing of our imaginations. So we had a very personal, close to home urban legends, and I think his name was like Mr. Gary or something. But it was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Gary.
And he knows it's okay. You don't know who lived there. He knows where you live now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just finally before we go, what is it working on these shows and working in this show, particular Hell Motel, that you've learned about monsters, killers, etc., that would you think a lesson that could be useful if you ever had to survive in a real life horror movie, Jim?
Honestly, that just running zigzag patterns. I feel like, if you're running a straight line, they always just whatever you're doing, just run the other way. Don't be so obvious. I think that's what I've learned, is that these killers are pretty simple creatures at their base level. So just think outside the box.
I think that also applies to alligators. So
that's right. Yeah. Well, that's really all these are, just alligators.
Right.
Just in the plot of Hell Motel.
Hell Motel season 2. And how about you, Paula?
Well, I've been building on that because they've got their masks, right? The peripheral, it's not great. So you got to just think about that, and don't go anywhere alone, for the love of God. I don't know what that is about, but also don't pick me to be your buddy because you'll be gone. Because I think I'd give up. Like, it's just too hard.
Or just you might be the perfect partner. It just got to outrun you. That's kind of the.
I'm great bait. Pick up a slower partner, and that's how. Get a flashlight, because come on.
And it is a great mask, and I
think that's beautiful work by our designer.
Amazing.
Is pretty special. Yeah.
Well, I know there's a lot of other hellish motels out there, and I've enjoyed this season. I really hope that there is more hell motels out there to explore. Are you down for it if there are?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, baby. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. That's the t-shirt.
Like you did. I'm glad you like it, Aaron. Thank you. That's cool to hear.
Well done. All right, guys, I think we got to get out of here. But thank you so much for your time. And Marissa, thank you so much for making this happen. And I'll keep you guys posted on when it all goes out into the world. Okay?
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Man.
All right. You too. Right on, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
And that was Paula Brancati and Jim Watson. Paula plays the Scream Queen Paige on Hell Motel, and Jim Watson plays the academic with a focus on true crime. and they both previously appeared on the slasher series franchise. Now they return to Hell Motel by the slasher creators Martin and Ian Carpenter. Again, I had fun with this. I have, you can go check out the first two episodes if you're listening to this on the week of its premiere on June 17th, and then new episodes are dropping weekly, and I enjoyed this. It's good horror and some good camp. So on Shudder and AMC Plus, new episodes releasing weekly on Tuesdays. So there you go. There's Hell Motel, Jim Watson, Paula Brancati, and this has been Talking Strange. I'm Aaron Sagers. Until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.